Link and Midna stand outside Hyrule Castle. The magical barrier surrounding it pulses with energy. They must get through, so Midna summons the fused shadow. The four pieces swirl around, then form together. As has been implied by the fact that Midna wears a piece of it on her head, the fused shadow is sort of a mask or headpiece. It covers her face entirely. Midna is smaller than average, so it seems too big for her. She's thrown around by the power of the artifact. She's thrown between the walls of the front castle gate before tumbling over the wall and disappearing from view. We hear a sound like sloshing water, and a giant hand appears, gripping the top of the wall. It resembles the hand that Midna's hair would sometimes transform into. Midna herself has now completely transformed. The fused shadow, seeming larger than ever, peeks over the wall. Midna is now a spider-like creature. She has 7 arms surrounding her body, like the legs of a spider. She leaps onto the magical barrier and produces a magical trident. She strikes the barrier and it crumbles away with a blinding flash of white. Midna awakens in Link's arms. It's unclear how long it's been. She has returned to her imp form. Rain has started to fall. All that remains now is to enter the castle, fight through its defenses, and take out Ganon himself. This is Legendary Adventures, a Legend of Zelda playthrough podcast. This week we're exploring the final dungeon of the game and taking on the King of Darkness Reborn. Oh, and Zelda's also here for some reason. Before we venture into the castle, however, I should mention the final hidden skill. I found the Howling Stone on Snow Peak, but I forgot to go to the Kakariko Graveyard and claim the skill until this point. The final skill is known as the Great Spin. When Link's health is full, he can perform a stronger spin attack with a larger radius. It's the Shade's parting words, however, that really pique the interest of most people. He says, "Although I accepted the life of the hero, I could not convey the lessons of that life to those who came after. At last, I have eased my regrets. You who have marched through countless foes, each mightier than the last, you who now gaze to the future with vision unclouded, surely you can restore Hyrule to its stature of yore, as the chosen land of the gods. Farewell. Go, and do not falter, my child." This speech is broadly considered to be an admission by the hero Shade that he is, in fact, Link from Ocarina of Time. That he refers to Link as his child is carrying a lot of the weight here, though he also mentions that he took on the life of a hero. Subscribers to this theory also point out that both Link and the hero Shade are left-handed, at least in the unmirrored versions of the games. Likewise, most of the Howling Stones contain songs from Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask, though there were also those 2 unnamed original songs and the main theme from Twilight Princess. An entry in the book Hyrule Historia, published by Dark Horse Comics, also seems to back up this theory. On page 118 it states the hero Shade is Link from Ocarina of Time, but that same passage also incorrectly states that the regret which held him on Earth was being forgotten by the population in general. There are some who remain unconvinced that the Shade is the hero of Time. After all, he doesn't have the appearance of any past version of Link, and he seems to be convinced that his hidden skills are what make one a true hero, not necessarily the divine calling that Link obviously has by the mark of the Triforce on his hand. The Shade states that he remains on Earth because he could not pass his skills on, and will now depart to the afterlife because he finished passing on those skills. Hyrule Historia is also inconsistent on its conception of the hero Shade. It refers to the hero shade being Ocarina of Time's Link as a fan theory on page 179. The shade is clearly an ancestor of Link, and he transforms into a wolf because of this. But I have not come across an official quote from the developers on their ultimate intentions. Concept art from the Hyrule Historia suggests that the developers at the very least did not start with the idea that the hero's shade is also the hero of time. There are concepts of the shade wearing both samurai and Twilight armor, in addition to a female version of the shade. Where the developers ultimately settled on this question, I don't think we truly know. At least I haven't found anything. Where you settle on the question is ultimately up to you. Let's get back to the dungeon. Hyrule Castle is certainly one of the most unique dungeons in the game. While most of the game's dungeons featured complex, knotted layouts, they were ultimately fairly tightly structured experiences. Players will largely approach each of the game's dungeons in the same way. There is some flexibility here and there, but I suspect the vast majority of players will have a similar experience, and will take on the various dungeon challenges in the same order. Hyrule Castle, however, gives players a lot more flexibility. There are multiple routes through the dungeon. Players can skip over large portions of this space, and I suspect that most players will most likely not see all there is to see within the castle on a single visit. We start outside in the castle courtyard, and we're immediately met with our first choice. The entrance to the castle proper is locked, meaning we need to find a key. So will we go east or west to find it? Players only need to go in one direction before doubling back and entering the castle, but if they choose to tackle both, they will be rewarded. On my HD playthrough, I tackled only one of the exterior areas of the castle. I headed east, which is the equivalent of heading west in a standard, non-mirrored playthrough. Hyrule Castle is very heavily focused on combat challenges. You probably could even refer to it as a combat gauntlet, though it does hold some puzzles. Down this path, we first fight our way through a pack of enemies outside a gate to a side yard. The side yard itself is divided into 3 sub-areas, 2 open combat arenas that are connected by a narrow path. We fight through the first combat arena area, and then make our way down this path to reach the first mini-boss of the dungeon. King Bulbin returns. "I have come to play," he declares. This is the 4th time that we faced him in the game. Repeated bosses are nothing new in the Zelda series, of course. That this 4th face-off is ultimately optional is somewhat different. I used the magic armor purchased from Malomart in this fight. I typically don't use it, but I figured on a hero mode playthrough it might not be a bad idea. It drains rupees as you wear it, and you'll lose even more if you take a hit. The fight against King Bulbin is essentially the same as the one we had at Arbiter's Grounds. He does use a hurricane spin move that I don't recall seeing at the Arbiter's Grounds, but all in all this fight really isn't much different. Once he takes enough punishment, the king stops the fight. "Enough," he says, as he hands Link the small key. He then mounts his boar and declares, "I follow the strongest side. That's all I've ever known," before departing. Midna is shocked that he spoke, and I've been baffled by this little moment ever since the very first time I played this game nearly 20 years ago now. Midna's call-out specifically highlights King Bulbin speaking as if it was unexpected or unusual, but I never felt that it was. I had no idea I was supposed to recognize this guy as being taciturn. I don't think he is. He growls, he howls, he taunts Link. Maybe he doesn't always speak a language we can understand, but the game makes it pretty clear that Bulblins have their own language, and it sounds like grunting and growling. Also, just because text isn't written on the screen doesn't mean nothing is being said. We often see this with Link. I have seen people frame this as being shocking because a monster speaks at all in a Zelda game, but monsters have spoken since the very first game in the series when a moblin slipped Link a rupee and told him it's a secret to everybody. And we've seen talking bosses since A Link to the Past, so why are we so shocked that he spoke? With a key in their pockets, players can head inside the castle, which I did on my HD playthrough. But let's explore the other side of the castle courtyard. I went through all of the areas outside the castle on my GameCube playthrough. The area that we have not seen yet is on the east in the standard unmirrored version of the game, but west in the mirrored versions. Again, we have a combat challenge just before passing through a gate to a side yard. Through the gate, we find a Bulbin camp, similar to the one that we found in the Gerudo Desert. There are archer towers above and enemies on the ground. We take these enemies out, and steal a Bulbo, the boar that the Bulblins ride, in order to smash our way to the north. On the north end of this area, we find a turbine puzzle like the one to get the big key in the forest temple. This time there are more turbines than before, placed at the intersections of a Triforce drawn on the ground. A stone tablet on the ground shows the solution, but it's covered in leaves, so we need to blow them away with the boomerang. This is the only time in the game that we need to blow leaves away in Twilight Princess. We then hit only the turbines shown on the tablet. This opens a gate leading to the dungeon map. The map reveals there's a northern yard area, connected to the one that we're in. We can find the path to it by turning into a wolf, and using Link's senses to find a spot to dig. It's partially obscured by leaves. We then dig through and Link finds himself in the castle cemetery. There are Stallchild and Stallfos enemies to take out, but this is largely a puzzle space. There's a closed gate to the northeast. A helpful gravestone nearby tells us, the cursed swordsman sleeps before the sacred tree. A second reads, in the land where the rain stops, the statue of time moves. Using Link's wolf senses, we can find the sacred tree and the grave of the cursed swordsman. There are ghosts of soldiers who stand around and point to it. A bomb opens the grave, revealing a floor switch. Stepping on the switch opens the gate. Through the gate, we find a few treasure chests with rupees inside, a pot of oil that we can use to refill our lantern, and a torch. Lighting it causes the rain to stop, for a brief time. We can then head to the west of the cemetery. There's another gated area with 2 owl statues inside. We can open this gate by lighting 2 torches outside, but it can only be done when the rain has stopped. A tablet behind the owl statue reads, door opens where specters gaze. We can use Link's wolf senses to find a spot along the south wall of the cemetery. There are 2 indentations in the ground for the statues to rest. Ghostly soldiers look at this spot and point. We use the Dominion Rod to guide both statues to the indentations meant for them. We can then use them as stepping stones and hop across to a raised area with a 3rd gate. We use a chain lever to open this one, and inside we find a small key. Once we collect this key, Midna will say that you've found everything you need out here, and urge you to head inside the castle. I did this side of the castle yard first in my GameCube playthrough, which only emphasizes how players have options on how much they want to do outside. Inside the castle, we have to take out a few waves of monsters in the front room before we can really start exploring. The castle's music is a new arrangement of the classic Hyrule Castle theme from A Link to the Past. This version is slow, thin, and mournful. Defeating all enemies in the room causes a chest to appear on a high balcony space. We can reach it by grappling to a helpfully placed chandelier. The chest holds the compass. We then use the claw shots to grapple to 2 other chandeliers and reach a central door on a high balcony. In the next room, we take out a dark nut, then solve a puzzle to reach a high ledge leading to a fork in the road. The puzzle involves lighting 2 torches and extinguishing a 3rd in order to raise platforms to climb. Players have the option to travel east or west. They only have to travel in one direction. I took different routes on each of my playthroughs. I traveled west at the fork on my GameCube playthrough. We take out a couple Lizalfos in the next room and then shoot a painting off the wall to reveal a crystal switch. There are 2 paintings and 2 crystal switches. Only the one on the left needs to be struck. The one on the right is a trap. In the next room, we take out a couple of dark nuts. We can then head back into the front foyer to grab a rupee from a chest. But the path forward leads us outside, to an area where the split paths come back together. I took the alternate path on my HD playthrough. It also spans 2 rooms. In the first room we solve a torch lighting puzzle. We need to light the torches in a proper order. The solution is hidden behind a painting on the wall. In the next room we take out a pair of Dynalphos. Then we head outside and the split path essentially meets back together. Outside there are 2 small towers, one to the southeast and one to the southwest. We need to visit at least one of them before heading back into the central tower. The towers are located in the same area of the castle, but each will place Link closer to one than the other. The path I took on my HD playthrough placed me in front of what would be the southeast tower in a non-mirrored playthrough. As we head toward this tower, we take out an Aeralphos. A chest within the tower holds a small key. The other tower, which I was directly in front of after exiting on my GameCube playthrough, holds the big key. As we approach it, a cutscene begins. Around 4 Lizalfos emerge from the tower. 2 Bulbin archers are posted in the tower windows, but we don't have to worry about them because all the enemies are suddenly taken out. The archers are shot with arrows. A cannonball strikes the Lizalfos. A hawk flies over the castle. Link looks down to the courtyard below and sees the members of the Resistance. Oru is armed with a cannon. Russell the hawk. He waves, Link nods in return, and the Resistance disappears in the castle. We don't ever see them again. Their intervention in a fight that really would not have been particularly challenging is just here to bring them full circle in the story. They don't just point Link to dungeons, but they also help fight the evil invading Hyrule. With the big key and at least one small key in our pocket, we can re-enter the castle and head up the central tower. We use Link's wolf senses to cross a room with rickety floors that fall away if Link takes the wrong path. Helpful spirits of soldiers point Link in the proper direction to avoid falling. We then ascend 3 staircases, taking out enemies at each landing. Each staircase is broken and is ascended in a different way. The first is ascended just through platforming, we auto-jump up it. The second requires use of the claw shots. And the third requires the spinner while we avoid spike traps. As players ascend up these staircases, Ganon's theme becomes mixed in with the castle theme. It grows louder and more prominent on each landing. Until the castle theme is completely consumed by Ganon's theme and drops out of the mix. It's a musical nod to Ocarina of Time, and how Ganon's theme grew louder as we climbed the tower in that game. At the top of the 3rd staircase we find the boss door, and a second door locked with a small lock. If we got the keys from both outdoor areas at the start, and grabbed both keys after exiting to the outdoor areas following the split path, we can open the small door. Inside we find a room packed with treasure chests, pots, crates, and barrels. There are 5 large chests surrounded by 8 small chests. They contain a mix of rupees, which will be useful if you use the magic armor, and ammo refills. One chest contained bombings for me. I had never purchased them, but I did have an empty bomb bag. Bombings in Twilight Princess are the equivalent of bomb chews. They don't seem to climb walls like bomb chews did, and honestly I can't think of a single time where I've used them in the past. They're not required for any puzzle that I'm aware of. Time now to face Ganon. Through the boss door, we find ourselves outside again. The sky has become the sickly yellow color of the twilight-covered areas of Hyrule from earlier in the game. Lightning flashes. We ascend a final staircase to reach the throne room at the top of the castle tower. Inside the throne room, a statue of the goddesses sits above the throne. The goddesses surround a large representation of the Triforce. Midna and Link find the heads and arms of the statues have been broken off. And in the center of the Triforce within the sculpture is Princess Zelda. Her eyes are closed, she appears unconscious. How and when she appeared is entirely unknowable. "Welcome to my castle," says a menacing voice from the throne. Ganondorf sits with a white magical sword of the sages, the very sword that was intended to be the means of his death, across his lap. As he stands, we can see a glowing wound in his chest. It's the very spot that he was run through by the sages many ages ago. The wound remains, as does Ganon. He tells Midna that her people have long amused him. He calls them pathetic, but says their hatred and agony in the Twilight Realm are what revived him. Your people had some skill, to be sure, but they lacked true power, Ganon declares. He who willed such power would make a suitable king for this world, don't you think? He brandishes his hand marked with the Triforce as he speaks. Midna declares that she will risk everything to deny him. How amusing. Very well, deny me then, Ganon says as he moves to cast a spell on the body of the princess. Midna throws herself between Ganon and Zelda, but Ganon dissolves into the square twilight particles and passes through Midna and into Zelda. Midna cannot bring herself to hit Zelda, but it is in fact not Zelda anymore. Her body is now possessed by Ganon. She is merely a puppet. Midna is flung outside the throne room by Ganon's power. A barrier forms preventing her from re-entering the throne room, and the final fight begins. There are 4 stages to the final boss fight. 4 separate fights strung together with cutscenes in between. The fight with Puppet Zelda kicks things off. That Midna is separated from Link during this fight is a clear callback to Ocarina of Time, and how Navi was separated from Link during the fight with Ganondorf. Though, unlike Ocarina of Time, not having Midna in this fight really makes no difference. Navi was essential to the targeting system of the earlier game, meaning players could not target during that fight with Ganon. Here, players aren't likely to have used any of Midna's abilities in this fight anyway. The fight with Puppet Zelda is a dead man's volley fight. We need to volley an energy ball with Zelda until she misses a return and is struck by it. Unlike Phantom Ganon in Ocarina of Time and the Wind Waker, we never directly hit her with our sword. Instead, like Aghanim from A Link to the Past, we only need to return the volley. Zelda also has a diving attack where she flies at Link with her sword outstretched. She'll also make triangles of light appear on the floor that will damage players if they are caught inside. The music for her fight begins with rapidly ascending notes. This ascending intro is a faster tempo version of the start of Ganon's battle theme in Ocarina of Time. Take a listen, here it is in Ocarina of Time, and here it is in Twilight Princess. The music itself is frantic with a driving rhythm. The melody quickly sways back and forth between ascending and descending notes. Strings and female vocals do this in unison. It sounds somewhat drunken to me, like someone not completely in control. The strings and vocals being performed in unison also suggest the possession of Zelda's body by an outside force. About 30 seconds in, we get an off-kilter arrangement of Zelda's theme. It all builds to a massive crescendo before looping over again. After returning the volley 3 times, the fight ends. Ganon screams. He loses control of his magical barriers. They fade. Midna then summons the power of the fused shadow. She uses her magic to grab and envelop Princess Zelda. When Midna releases her, Zelda is seated on the throne, still unconscious. Ganon is gone, but the Twilight particles begin to reform behind Link. Ganon isn't done yet. This time he transforms, taking on the form of a giant boar. He is Dark Beast Ganon, but with Link and Midna reunited, they are ready to take him on. The music for this fight is much more relaxed than the music for Puppet Zelda. It has drums that give a wild jungle-like vibe, and an off-kilter melody warbled out by a distorted synth. Most notable, however, is a repetitive chanted vocal, which is only heard when Dark Beast Ganon is on screen. Eiji Aonuma told Nintendo Dream in 2007 that Twilight Princess is a game all about throwing goats from beginning to end. We of course first threw goats in Ordon Village. Aonuma said the mechanic was then worked in throughout the game in ways that are both obvious and less obvious. One obvious way is throwing the Gorons on Death Mountain. A less obvious way is how Link opens the doors by pushing against them. The Dark Beast Ganon fight is the final implementation of goat throwing. It perhaps takes some inspiration from the Phantom Ganon fight in Ocarina of Time. The beast will disappear and then portals appear around the arena. The portal that the beast will emerge from will turn blue. This is somewhat similar to the paintings in the Phantom Ganon fight. But the portals are a bit more random, and other mechanics of the fight make it very much different and distinct. The beast is most easily fought in wolf form. When it emerges from a portal, if Link is facing the beast, Midna's hair will turn into a hand. A well-timed press of the A button will grab the beast and we can throw it on its side. Ganon's glowing wound now covers his whole chest and belly. This is his weak spot. When thrown, the damage phase begins. I generally turn into a human to attack him during this phase, but players can remain a wolf. We throw and then attack Ganon 3 times, and the beast falls. As the beast lies limp on the floor, a dark energy pours from its body like fire. As Link and Midna stare at Ganon, Midna begins to glow with a white light. That light leaves her body and then drifts to Princess Zelda. When the light hits her, she awakens. Zelda seems to offer some explanation for what just happened when she says to Midna, "Your heart and mine were one, however briefly." It seems to suggest that Zelda's life force was inside Midna and has now returned to her body. But how her body reformed and how the life force was returned is still unclear. I just don't think this plot point really works. Ganon's body seems to burn away. The dark energy forms into his face. Midna summons the fused shadow. Link goes to stop her, seemingly because Midna lost consciousness for a bit and was drained after using the fused shadow to break through the barrier of the castle. She instead teleports Link and Zelda away. Midna transforms into the spider-like creature that we saw earlier, and grows to fill the chamber. She produces a great magical trident, and moves in to strike Ganon. There's a blinding flash of white. Link and Zelda appear in North Eldin Hyrule Field. For a moment all is quiet. Then, the castle explodes. From the smoke, a figure appears. Ganon, astride a massive black horse. Midna's helmet is in his hand. He clenches his fist and it crumbles. Midna, it seems, is dead. Ganon then turns his horse towards Link and Zelda. Sword in hand, he charges toward them, as phantom horsemen follow behind. Zelda prays to the light spirits. She and Link are transported to a spiritual realm. The light spirits grant Zelda light arrows. Zelda then asks Link to lend her the last of his power. When he agrees, he and Zelda are transported back to Hyrule Field, atop Link's horse. The third phase of the boss fight begins. It's a horse-mounted fight similar to the earlier fight against King Bulbin. This time Zelda helps. She urges Link to stay close to Ganon and target him. She'll fire light arrows at him when she's in range. After he's hit with a light arrow, we can hit him with Link's sword. This is the third time that Zelda has actually fought alongside Link and participated in the final boss fight. The first time was in the Wind Waker, and she also joined in the fight in Four Swords Adventures. Ganon generally rides around the field, attempting to stay ahead of Link and Zelda. He will occasionally ride toward them and slash his sword. More often, he throws a ball of energy into the air, which bursts and spawns phantom riders that rush Link. If players get hit, Link will be thrown from his horse and have to climb back on. Ganon will politely wait for Link to catch up if he gets too far away. The music for this fight is heavy on militaristic drums with lots of snare. It features a pulsing bassline and stabbing strings and horns. I think it's the least interesting of the Ganon boss fight themes, and the least noticeable. The horns do occasionally play a line that seems to be similar to Ganon's theme, but it's not quite the same. That is the most interesting part of the theme, in my opinion. After I landed around 4 hits on Ganon, he fell from his horse. When the dust clears, Ganon stands up again and laughs as he does. He challenges Link to a one-on-one duel. A magical barrier forms around the two warriors. This is the second time that Link has battled Ganondorf in a one-on-one duel. The first time was in the Wind Waker. This time the battle's a bit slower. Both Link and Ganon are heavier and slower in this game. Ganon, however, is still capable of some high-flying acrobatics. He'll perform some big leaps and attempt to drop down with a spin attack. We need to get our hits in between Ganon's defenses. The backslice sometimes works, but it was inconsistent for me. Very occasionally, Ganon will rush at Link, and a prompt to press A for a chance appears on screen. If we do this successfully, Link and Ganon clash swords, and players have a bit of a quick-time event where they mash the A button to win the clash and open Ganon's defenses for a bit. The music is the best of the ending 4 boss fights. It's percussive and pulsing. Big, steady drums and deep male vocals match the rhythm. A dramatic horn melody suggests the confident strength of Ganon. Around 40 seconds in, the bridge segment starts, changing tempo and rhythm. Drums and vocals stay in unison, accented by horn stabs. Then the original rhythm returns again, while Ganon's theme plays over top. If we successfully beat Ganon in a chance sword clash, we'll hear a brief snippet of the advantageous theme, the second part of what I refer to as Link's courage theme. It'll play while Ganon's defenses are open. After several hits, Ganon falls to the ground, and Link performs an ending blow. It's somewhat similar to the ending blow in the Wind Waker, but rather than driving the sword through Ganon's head, Link thrusts the sword through his chest wound. At first, Ganon is silent, his mouth open. Slowly, a scream starts to come from his mouth. Ganon still isn't done. He forces himself to his feet in obvious pain and unsteady. "Do not think this ends here. The history of light and shadow will be written in blood," he declares. But as he looks at the back of his hand, the symbol of the Triforce fades. Having been defeated 4 times by Link, the gods are revoking their recognition of his power. Ganon's breathing becomes more labored. He stares blankly ahead, and a vision appears before him. Ganon sees Zant. The Usurper King does not have his signature helmet on. Zant suddenly moves his neck to the side, and there's a sickening crack. Ganon rears back in shock, his eyes roll back into his head, before his head slowly lowers and Ganon dies standing up. This vision of Zant has been a source of confusion and theories among fans for years. In his 2016 interview on Miiverse for Twilight Princess HD, Aonuma was asked what this scene meant. He admitted that he didn't know either. He said, "The leader of the team that created that scene was well known for being a bit of a lone wolf when it came to making cutscenes. We wanted to make the best of those qualities in him, so we had him make all of the cutscenes for Twilight Princess. When he made that one, I couldn't help thinking, the neck! The neck! But I had immense faith in him. Anything he made must be art. I remember thinking that I just didn't get it, so I didn't say anything at the time. He doesn't name names there, but I believe he's talking about Takumi Kawagoe. He's been the cinema scene director on the series since Ocarina of Time. In a 2005 article for Nintendo Power, Kawagoe described himself as a Star Wars superfan. He also admitted to using Woody Allen's movie Husbands and Wives for inspiration for scenes with the Happy Mask salesman in Majora's Mask. And he said his favorite movie at that time was the 2004 animated film Mind Game. I haven't seen it, but based on a trailer, it looks like a real trip. Who knows what inspiration Kawagoe drew from when he created this scene with Zant. Ganon is dead, and the light spirits appear. Midna suddenly appears with them. It seems that the spirits have perhaps willed her back to life? I'm not clear on it. She appears to be in imp form and is wearing the helmet, the piece of the fused shadow that we witnessed Ganon crush. Link runs towards her and she's briefly hidden by a hill. When he reaches her, she has grown and has returned to her original shape. She wears an open cloak and stands about as tall as Link. Her proportions are normal for a human. She has a bare midriff and wears a long skirt with slits that run all the way up to the waist. Think Princess Leia in her slave outfit in Return of the Jedi, and you've got a pretty good idea of how Midna dresses. What? Say something, Midna says to Link. Am I so beautiful that you've no words left? The credits roll. We see scenes all over Hyrule. King Bulbin and his minions ride across a grassy field. In Kakariko, a covered wagon pulled by a horse prepares to leave to take the children of Ordon home. The Gorons sumo wrestle in their home. There's a lively crowd of customers in Telma's bar, while people dance in the streets of Castletown. The castle itself seems undamaged despite the explosion during the fight with Ganon. As the covered wagon makes its way towards Ordon Village, we see Colin now wears a wooden sword and shield on his back, in emulation of Link. The Ghost Queen of Rutella watches over her son, Prince Rallis, in Zora's domain. Fire and Falby glide over Lake Hylia using chickens. Henna, Koro, and Iza sit together on the banks of the fishing hole. Henna gives Koro a friendly shove. A heart floats from Snow Peak ruins, indicating that Yeto and Yetta are spending some, quality time together. Shad, Ashe, and Oru explore the ruins of the Temple of Time. As the covered wagon returns to Ordon, we see Uli caring for a new baby. The pink blankets suggest it may be a girl. At long last, the families of Ordon are reunited. Zelda, Link, and Midna have gathered in the mirror chamber atop the Arbiter's grounds. Midna urges Link and Zelda not to forget her world, which is bound to theirs. They're not quite understanding what Midna is saying. Zelda says she believes the mirror was left in Hyrule as a link between worlds so they could meet. Midna thanks Zelda for her kindness. She moves to where she can pass through the portal to the Twilight Realm. The princess spoke truly. As long as that mirror is around, we could meet again, Midna says, as a shimmering tear appears in her eye. She addresses Link, but finds herself unable to express what she wants to. I see you later. As she bids farewell, she flings the tear from her eye onto the mirror of Twilight. It begins to crack. Midna passes into the world of Twilight, and the mirror shatters completely, turning to dust as it does. The connection between the worlds is closed forever. We see more glimpses of spaces across Hyrule as the credits continue. Notably, the Master Sword has been returned to its pedestal in the Sacred Grove. In Ordon, Fado stands outside Link's home calling for him. He does not answer. He's not there. Ilia stands at the head of the trail leading to the Ordon Sacred Spring, waiting and watching for Link. We see him as he passes into Ordon, finally arriving home on the back of his horse. That's it for this week's episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Next week we're going to take a closer look at the HD version of the game. I'll go into a little more detail on some of the changes made to that version, and give my opinions on it. If you'd like to follow along, please subscribe. And if you've already subscribed, thank you. You're awesome. I'm Paul Riley, and I will see you next week.